All right, so I'm sorry this took me so long. I don't know what the holdup was, but it's time to get down to business. So what I want to do is I want to talk you through how to look at your marketing, how to do a marketing inventory, and how to rejiggy your entire thinking around your marketing so that as the leader of your company, you'll be able to make better strategic decisions, better tactical decisions, and really get that feeling of like, I know what's going on. Because, every time I talk to CEOs, all I ever hear is marketing is just this big expense. And I see, money going out the window like crazy. And yes, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I hear from sales all the time, the leads suck. And marketing saying it's, not the leads, it's sales. So I want to walk you through exactly how to untangle this whole thing and how to give you a much better grip on your cash flow, your results, your technology, and really give you a step-by-step system by which you can implement in your business. And when you go and you start projecting a year or 2 years out and say, hey, I want 20% growth rate, this is exactly how it's going to happen. And then have the confidence to know, here's the steps on how we're going to get there. Here's how much it's going to cost. And if it veers off course and it doesn't work, or the market changes or something happens, you'll have the decision-making tools and levers in order to identify what's not working and where you might change your tactics, your strategies, and your budgeting. So with that being said, let's jump right in and let me kind of fill you in on the high level, and then we'll get into the nitty gritty. All right, so let's take this from the top. Now, you're sitting here at the top of your organization, right? You're the CEO, and you make all the decisions, all the responsibility, the budgeting, the vision, everything falls on your shoulders. And you probably have a team of 3 key players: your CMO, your COO, and your CFO. And each one of them, is responsible for their domains within your business. And what happens is you're coming in here and you're trying to direct these people to not only do their jobs, but to play well together and how they interact with each other, right? So the CFO is responsible for all the money and the cash flows in the business. I'm not telling you anything you don't know. Your COO is responsible for the ops and the delivery of everything marketing and sales promises, right? So you're sitting there saying, hey, we need to grow. I want to grow 20% this quarter, this half year, this year. Well, that means you need to increase your marketing. So all you're seeing then is these big dollars going into your marketing department. And if you think about it, your CFO is the one who goes and allocates this money. And then the marketing goes and spends it. But here's what happens. So the CFO and general accounting principles, right? What the goal of accounting is to do is to basically bunch all your transactions into similar categories. So what happens is when you start looking at your cash flow statement, your marketing department, your expenses are categorized very typically, and I'm going to show you an example here, but what I'm talking about is you have your advertising, you have your print, you have trade shows, you have your personnel expenses or your people expenses, you have tools, subscriptions, etc. And what that looks like on a normal P&L here, this is a basic software B2B cash flow statement that I've developed. And this is kind of what you're looking at, right? So on your normal cash flow statement, your sales and marketing comes in and you have, here's your generalized expenses, right? And if you're lucky, they're broken out into percentages, sales and commissions, marketing programs, paid media software and tools, and they're all broken out. And this is why when you start thinking about your marketing and the money going out, you're looking at your cash flow statements and you're going, all I see is money going out. Where does this tie together, and where do I see the return on my investment? And I think what it is it's symptomatic of just general accounting principles. All you're seeing it as an expense. There's no revenue tied in here. You have revenue up here at the top of your cash flow statement, but you have no way of tying these two things together, right? So here's what the first thing we do is, if I were working with you, I would ask you to come in, go back to your CFO, and ask the CFO to produce a new and updated cash flow statement for you. Let me detail this out in a 1, 2, 3 steps. So we want to create this new cash flow statement. And what you have to do is have your CMO detail out what are the different marketing strategies that you're doing as a company. And think of this in terms of, I think of it in terms of channels. So I use strategies and channels interchangeably. So you could say, hey, we're doing Facebook ads, we're doing Google ads, we're doing SEO, that's an expense line item. We're doing trade shows. So let's keep it as the basic kind of B2B playbook here, right? So the new balance sheet, what you want to do then is you go to your CFO and you have them create new categories for each of your marketing strategies. And again, I have this broken out in this illustrative example here. So we separate out the sales because that's a different function, but then we come in and we categorize each of the different channels. So this is channel 1 is general social media. Everyone feels they need to do this. So, you're producing your Instagram, your Facebook, your LinkedIn, whatever it is, but that should be a whole expense category in and of itself. And within that category, you have probably copywriter expenses, you have graphic artist expenses, you have the management, project management, social media calendar management, that sort of stuff. And then you also have the technical production built into there, right? Like someone has to build this stuff. And so your new cash flow statement, what you're now showing is you have these line items broken out, but for the month, for your social media, you spent $39.90, right? And then now you can come in, and I'm assuming you do it in-house. Well, again, you have a content writer probably, you've got a graphics person, you have the management of the system, and then you have the technical production, and then you're possibly paying for backlinks, and that may total to $7,300. And then let's say you're doing trade shows. So here's channel 3. And your trade shows, you've got travel, booth costs, personnel costs, collateral and swag, you've got, maybe sponsorship costs, shipping and logistics to get stuff to and fro. And now what you can do is for this channel, again, you've got a total cost broken down. And then the same with your online ads. And whether you want to, go so far as to refine it and bring it out from, Meta to Google to wherever you're placing ads, you can break it out that way, but you can also just keep it as a singular paid media channel. So here's channel 4. And then let's say here's channel 5, print marketing, but you get the idea. And what this does now is this gives you a number where you can start looking at each individual strategy and putting, what am I paying for paid media? What am I paying for my trade shows? What am I investing in for SEO? And what this does is this starts to get you on the path of being able to determine where are my cash flows going. Now here's the thing, that's only one side of the coin, right? You're still not getting that much valuable information to make decisions. So what we want to do now is we want to go on to the next step. So in this next step, what's really important is now we want to try and tie in the expenses to the revenue, right? So in a step-by-step, the new cash flow statement, the first one you're creating is just broken out by expenses. And you can do this all at once, or you can do it step by step. Sometimes CFOs push back and they think you're crazy and it's too much work, but it gets worse for them, but it gets better for you. And actually it gets better for them too, because you're going to be able to vastly improve your budgeting and expenditures on your marketing. So now what we're going to do is we're going to come in and create the second stage cash flow statement. And what that looks like, so here we came in, we have this new one, right? So the next one, what we want to do is we want to start trying to tie in revenue to this. And so again, it's the same cash flow statement, but now what we're doing is we're taking this bulked up revenue number here at the top, and you want to have your CFO try and break this out. And this is where they're going to have to work with your CMO. But you want to be able to come in here and say, okay, the sales team generated $65K in revenue. And all you're doing is just adding another column to your cash flow statements, right? And then you come down, all right, what are we doing in channel 2, or our social media? Well, that generated 11,667. SEO generated 63,000. Trade shows, we did about 35,000 in sales. And then on our paid advertising, we did 51. And now again, you have your percentages here, which gives you a ratio, because I like working in ratios. I'll explain more of that later. But now what you're going to be able to do is now you can start seeing and calculating what is the ROI per channel. And here's what I mean by that. So what we've done is we've basically segmented your cash flow into your marketing channels, and then we've attributed the cost per channel to the cash flow statement, and then that last piece we've tied in the revenue. And what that gives you is the ability to say, hey, look, you know, we spent, I'll take SEO because that's the generic one everyone loves. So in our example here on SEO, we spent $7,300, and according to our numbers from our CMO, that expenditure generated $63,000 in revenue. So now you can do the math and you can say, oh, well, that's a positive ROI, right? Now what you have is actually some real numbers to put your hands around, and as the leader of your business, you're able to say, you know, this channel was profitable, this one was not so profitable, this one's a negative. And it gives you the ability now to start working with your CMO instead of just saying, hey, how's it going? Boy, that's a lot of money we spent last month. And they coming back saying, everything's great, everything's working. Now that you have some data by which to have a conversation. Why is this channel performing so much better than that channel? Why is this one not working? This one's not been working for 6 months in a row. Why are we still doing it? It gives you the structure and the ability and the data, most importantly, to now start really driving your marketing and your sales. But we're not done. So let's take this one step further. Right. So now we've got a generalized feeling, you know, where our revenue and expenses and how it all ties together. But the next step, what you're going to have to do is now your CMO gets more involved, because now your CMO comes in and they have to create the last step in this new cash flow statement that we're trying to set up. And what that last step is, you want to come in and you want to start tying, if you look up here at my titles, you start looking at your MQLs. Right? Because that's really the job of marketing, is they drive marketing qualified leads, not leads. Leads is just a name and phone number. I don't care about leads. I want marketing qualified leads. I want people who raise their hand and say, hey, I want to know more about what you're doing. That is what a marketing qualified lead is. I have a whole nother video on the difference between leads and MQLs. If you don't know what I'm talking about or you disagree, please go watch that video. But for this conversation, we're talking about marketing qualified leads. So all we do then is we're coming in here and we're adding this line item to each of the different channels, right? If we look at social media and we're looking at the revenue and the expenses, now we come in and we put in, oh, you know what? Over the last month, social media generated 38 marketing qualified leads for our business. What did SEO do? Well, SEO came in and gave us 95 marketing qualified leads. Trade shows, we got 14 from that last show we did. Online ads, 75. Print media got us 16. What do we have now? This is where, you know, the rubber meets the road, so to speak, because now not only can we start calculating the ROI per channel, we can now start tying in and looking at our cost per marketing lead per channel. So what we're doing is we're taking the number of leads we have divided by the total expenses, and that gives us our cost per lead. And now we've got a level of detail that you as the leader of your company, working with your CMO and your CFO, can sit down and working together, you can say, look, in this channel, our leads cost, say, $150. And in this channel, they cost $220. And in this channel, they cost $113. Now that's one specific set of information. You don't want to make all your decisions based on your cost per lead, because what we're trying to do here in the big picture is you've set out this growth goal for the year of, say, 30% growth, and that's X number of customers at X dollars per sale for the year. Well, now though, you have the ability to come in and say, number one, what is my budget going to be for the year? I have it broken out by channel, and I can start directing the money to the channels. But two, I can start saying, my cost per acquisition for this channel, paid media, is far less than, say, trade shows. Let's say it's half as much. But the thing is, that's why I always include sales in here, is because we want to track this all the way through to sales. Is we want to come back and we want to start looking at sales conversion metrics in here as well. And you want to start saying, well, look, our conversion rate from MQL to SQL on paid media, Facebook ads, Google ads, etc., is maybe, let's call it 6%. But when we go to a trade show, it's because it's an interactive person. We can talk to them. We can sit down with them. It's just a much richer experience. That may be 2 or 3 times more expensive for those MQLs. But if you tie in that ending SQL cost and conversion number, maybe we convert 9 out of 10 of those MQLs into actual sales. So you want to judge your expenses and revenue and everything all the way through to the sales using the conversion metrics too. So again, now think of where we're at. When we started this process, you're just looking at your cash flow statement and you're just seeing these outflows of money, and then you've got revenue, right? You have no decision making capability at all from a data standpoint. And that's why you're feeling that maybe your marketing isn't working, you're not sure what's working, your CMO, you're losing trust in them, and your CFO's complaining. Now, once we break out these new cash flow statements into channels, revenue, expenses, and MQLs, now we have such a rich set of data by which to make decisions. We can come in and we can start looking and analyzing this. So going back to this trade show example, you might have the highest conversion rate. They might be, your cost per acquisition could be totally within acceptable ranges. But the problem is, heck, there's only 2 trade shows a year. So you can now look at this channel and go, all right, trade shows are great. I love it. Full budget. Everything's golden. But that's not going to get us to our 30% growth rate for the year. So now I can go and say, all right, what's next? And then we can say, let's start looking at SEO. And you start looking at that channel and you have a cost per acquisition and a revenue. And you start thinking about it and you're like, wait a minute. Okay, we spend, say, $7,000 a month on SEO with everything. But the thing is, SEO now, you should know enough. SEO is a long game. Like, you can't go out tomorrow and make changes to your website and expect to fundamentally increase the amount of traffic and volume of MQLs within your business. But again, the numbers all pan out and they look good. You're positive ROI on it. You're getting MQLs. You just can't push it. So now, all right, there's 2 channels. Expenses are approved. I'm able to move forward on them, but I know that's not how I'm going to grow. So then we can go to the third one and we can say social media. All right, let's evaluate that. Same process. Here's our cost per lead. Here's what we're spending. And again, a little like SEO, we can increase the volume of our social media, but we don't have any real control on the overall results. It's not like a lever we can just push forward and start getting more leads in, at least not easily. And so you add that to the stack. And so that leaves you then, you're looking at, all right, well, I guess all we have is paid media. And so that's the channel that is scalable. If let's say you have a Facebook ad campaign, you're able to drive traffic to a conversion mechanism that works and the numbers all pan out on that. I've got a whole nother video on traffic versus conversions. That's the name of the game. But at this point now you can say, all right, look, we're running Facebook ads. We're spending, say, $20,000, $30,000 a month. It's profitable. Our CAC is in line. And this is the channel by which we're going to now grow into that sales projection, into that revenue and growth projection for the year. Even looking at your human resources, you can now start to move your people around and say, look, let's get the SEO, let's get the social media, let's get all that in order and taken care of, because I want all hands on deck. Let's focus on this paid advertising channel and medium. And that's how we're going to drive our top line revenue. And then all these other channels just become a management exercise where you're just paying attention to the numbers, the conversion numbers, the inputs, the expenses, the revenue, make sure all that stays stable. And it allows you now to really double down and focus on what's going to matter for your business. And so again, we're talking about the marketing audit here. You can also look at your sales. That's a whole nother video. But in terms of just driving those MQLs, this is how now you can go back and connect and say, all right, look, if for a 30% growth this year, we need X number of MQLs. And I can get, done. I can get so many from social media, I get so many from SEO, I get so many from this channel, and paid media needs to make up the rest, right? Well, if you know that, how many do we need to make up? What does that tell you? If you can take your cost per acquisition and let's say you need another 1,000 and you're paying $100 per MQL, well, there's your budget for the year, right? 100,000. And then all you have to do as the leader of your business is just make sure your CMO is focused on that. They're maintaining their KPIs and dashboards on, both expenditures, but also the conversion metrics. Are the ads converting at the right rates? And then does sales follow up and do their job? Again, sales is a whole nother video topic, but this first level one of your marketing inventory is really just about trying to tie together the dollars and cents. And if you go back to the beginning, this is where, again, now you can work with your 3 people. All right, so coming back to where we started, right? So you're basically transforming your accounting around your marketing, where now you've introduced both the revenue and your MQLs. And if you want to get, tie in the sales part of this, you can tie in your MQL to SQL conversion rate and then your final closed won lost rate. But we're really just focused on managing your CMO at this point with the marketing. But it now comes back here and it gives you the ability, here's how these 3 work together. Instead of this randomized expense going out the door, you now have a solid understanding of, we're spending it here, here's why, here's the cost per acquisition, here's our potential, right? Your marketing potential for this channel. And your CFO is looking at you going, well, that was kind of a pain in the ass to produce, but good Lord, now I feel comfortable about allocating more and more dollars because I know my CMO is spending the money correctly, right? And then the final piece of this organization here comes in is the COO. And this is what's important too, because the CFO and the COO need to work together, where you say, all right, we're growing 30% next year. That's X number of new customers. How are we going to pay for those new customers? How are we going to have the customer support? How are we going to have the product or service production, the research and development, all this stuff? Marketing is making all these promises about all the great stuff your products and services can do. It's your COO that has to deliver on those promises, right? But now your team is fully coordinated, all the dollars, everything comes together, and everybody's working as a team. And I think this is the most transformative part of when you introduce these types of ideas to your organization. Instead of when you have, your L10s or whatever executive type meetings you're doing, instead of getting a report from the CFO and the COO, and they're in these silos and they don't really understand each other's position and what needs to happen, when you start breaking out your accounting like this, and I don't know operations so well, but your COO can probably break it out and break out the numbers so that now you have a well-oiled, humming business organization where every dollar is tracked, every dollar is being used as efficiently as possible, and you're able to maximize your ROI on everything and become more profitable, deliver better products. It allows you to invest more here, better services. You can buy new tech, you can hire new people. It just works. But you should have a hang up here, because if we return to this final statement here, right? Let's go back to the main page. You should have some questions in your mind going, hey, whoa, wait a minute. Now, I can go to my CFO and I can work with my CMO and have them generate these numbers. But here's the thing, I have never once asked my CMO, how many MQLs did we drive from social media? How many MQLs did we drive from trade shows? How many MQLs did we drive from paid advertising? And so what this does is this now forces us to start looking at the second phase of your marketing inventory and audit. Is we have to start looking at the tracking and attribution. And this is where we enter into part 2, which is going to be an entirely another video that will follow this one directly. But part 2 is the technical audit of your marketing organization. And because if you can't go and get these numbers and know with confidence that, hey, from our social media activities, we generated, social media was 95. And if we're not tracking properly our trade shows and we know we got 14 and our attribution's not set up where we can't distinguish this sale came from a Facebook ad or this sale came from a Google ad, we don't know this stuff because we don't have the technical infrastructure set up, then you're kind of lost, right? Then you are literally just spending money and hoping for the best. So this is part 1. I hope that makes sense. If you have any questions or need some help on how to break this out or some of the thinking or theories behind it, go ahead and just make a comment down below. I'll try to respond, or just reach out. I'm happy to jump on a call. If you go to my site, my calendar's on there, you can book a call, and I'm happy to walk through this with you. But for part 1, it's the accounting and the financials of your marketing. That's the most important part to complete your inventory and audit of your marketing. So with that, again, your time is the most valuable asset. So if you're still watching this at this point, thank you for spending your time with me. Hope it was worth it. Hope these are some new ideas. You may want to have some conversations with your CMO at this point if you're not getting this kind of information. And at the very least, send this video to your CMO and CFO and get them started on this. So now in your organization, you're going to be able to start making these smarter decisions, which is what it's all about. So thanks. See you in the next one.